Matt Miguez has plenty on his mind, and he's ready to share it with the world. It's time to hear the Miguez Mindset.
Welcome into the Miguez Mindset here on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Lake Charles. Matt Miguez here talking about the New Orleans Bowl this week between the Louisiana Raging Cajuns and the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State. Joining me to preview it is Mr. Thomas Ashworth from the Anniston Star. Thomas, good afternoon, my man. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. You know, you gotta love bowl week. That's always a good time when you get to play in December. And for Jacksonville State, this is the first bowl game since getting called up to the FBS just last year. Just kind of walk me through this great season that the Gamecocks have had. I mean, 8-4, 6-2 in Conference USA. Like, what's kind of been the ingredient to success for them?
I mean, this is a team that was projected to win about 3 games, I think. Not many people had them higher than finishing 6th in the conference, and they finished 3rd in the conference, 8-4. Just a phenomenal season in its first season at the FBS level. And a lot of that is in part to just what Rich Rodriguez brings to Jacksonville State. I mean, people kind of said, oh, he's back. He's coaching again. Yeah, he's back in not Jacksonville, Florida, Jacksonville, Alabama. And he's coaching, and he's done a really good job with this program. Since in his 2 seasons there, they've had 17 wins, and that's not by accident either. I mean, he's implemented that fast offense that everyone knows and loves that Rich Rod puts on the field, and he runs the ball really effectively. It's just a fun offense to watch, and the whole bowl situation was in limbo with people having to wait for Jacksonville State and James Madison's turn because of they're waiting on certain teams to lose or, what have you. But this is just a great way to end a great season for Jacksonville State. And the players are just really excited.
So when looking at, the Gamecocks in preparation for Saturday, the stat that just flies off the page at you is the fact that this offense is rushing for 232 yards per game. How?
Yeah.
How do they manage to do that?
It's a lot of things, but one of those things is that they just have 3 running backs that are all considered starters. If you look at the depth chart, it's pretty weird. It says Malik Jackson or Anwar Lewis or Ron Wiggins, and those 3 guys are considered the co-starters. And because it takes 3 guys to run this offense. And Rich Rod's philosophy is, well, if you're not running the ball well, I got another guy who can run the ball well.
Right.
And then you're not running the ball well, then I'll take you out and put the other guy in. And I mean, they have 2 quarterbacks as well who run the ball pretty effectively. Zion Webb, obviously, he's going to be the starter, but right behind him is a guy who was a track star at Muscle Shoals High School in Alabama. He's a fast guy too, but it's just a lot of different guys rotating in and out. And these guys that Rich Rod favors, they're not like your big backs. These are guys who are like 5'10", 5'11", if that's about 180 pounds, who can just break quick. And a lot of that as well is just due to the fact that this offense runs so fast. I mean, they average 20 seconds a play. They lead college football in just the pure speed as which they run their offense. That's a large part of it too, is just people, they can't line up fast enough that right. These linemen are getting used to set up, and the quarterback's having to snap the ball. And they're just not, the defenses aren't used to it. Granted, that creates a lot of 3 and outs in 30 seconds or what have you, but it's just the speed at which they run the offense and the speed at which these running backs go.
So Zion Webb, you mentioned he's going to be the starter. Again, when looking at the stats and kind of watching some tape, Jacksonville State doesn't throw the ball a whole lot. He only has 194 attempts on the season, 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns. He does have 6 interceptions. Just kind of walk me through Zion Webb. And kind of the things that he brings to Rich Rod's offense that make it so unique.
This is a guy that his season was in limbo because he was awaiting eligibility from the NCAA for his 7th season. This is his 7th season playing college football.
7th season.
And Jacksonville State has 2 of them, Zion and then Jeremiah Harris, safety. They both entered in 2017, and they're still playing at Jacksonville State. So obviously he brings a lot of experience, I guess. But this is a guy that he runs the ball effectively. Obviously, you mentioned that, and but in that same token, I mean, there's certain receivers that can just break loose, and that helps them a lot. But they really rely on those running backs, and they really rely on Zion. And this is honestly his first season at which he's at full strength. He's dealt with illnesses, he's dealt with injuries in the past, and that's kind of limited him a little bit. So it's been really good for obviously Rich Rod and the staff to see him kind of get his full strength, be able to run the ball like he can. And I mean, he's he's just a fast dude. I mean, like I mentioned, both quarterbacks can run the ball effectively. But again, I mean, it's no accident that that he has so many rushing yards. I mean, he can break loose for sure.
Now, talking about the offense so much because that's kind of what Rich Rod does, right? He always has a high-powered, fast-paced offense no matter where he's coaching. But look, the defense has done well for the Gamecocks this year as well. Walk me through the defensive side of the ball. Who are some key players for Jacksonville State on the defensive side?
Yeah, so the defensive coordinator for Jacksonville State, a guy named Zach Alley, he's really young. I think he's not even 35, I don't think. Just a really young guy. Followed Rich Rod from ULM. Rich Rod pretty much gutted that staff at ULM when he came to Jacksonville State, and Zach Alley was one of them. But he's been able to put a really effective defense on the ground, especially in the run game. I mean, one of those guys that you can look for is Chris Hardy. This is a guy that's honestly, he's NFL ready. I mean, he's a guy that's provided lots of pressure on the quarterback. He's a guy that's come up with really good, honestly. I mean, you've seen him be able to break loose, like against Middle Tennessee. He was like, man, I was a running back in high school. I put that on the ground when he recovered a fumble. But he's just a big dude. And another guy that they brought with them from ULM, Quay Drake. He's a linebacker, and he's been really good. I mean, he got Conference USA honorable mention. I don't see how he got that. He's been really solid for Jacksonville State. And they rely a lot on their run defense, but at the same time, in their pass defense, they're down a couple of guys. They have they're missing Jabari Mack. He's out for the season. And Derek Carter, who I think is their best cornerback, is questionable. But I mean, still, I mentioned seventh-year guy. They have Jeremiah Harris, and that's a safety. They have a couple of other guys. Look for Kokora Tarnu and a couple more guys in the secondary that are looking to step up. But this run defense has just been remarkable. I mean, a lot of people were saying, oh, they don't have the defensive pieces. And that was a lot of the question. But those guys have really stepped up. And I think that they're one of the better ranked run defenses in the country.
Chatting with Thomas Ashworth here. Look, so let's get into this specific matchup. Jacksonville State averages 230 yards on the ground. The Cajuns are only giving up about 160. So look, you find the average of that. It's about 180, 190. Can Jacksonville State win a football game if they get less than 200 yards on the ground?
I don't think that the Sun Belt really has a run game like this in the same sense that they're so fast. They have four guys who can run the ball really effectively. And I think that that's really the main thing that has to go right for Jacksonville State against New Mexico State. They lost 20-17. They could not run the ball. I mean, they just could not. The only bright spot really was Zion Webb being able to pass the ball, oddly enough. But I know they finished with minuscule yards in the first half, and that's really what got them. So if they cannot run the ball effectively, I mean, it's going to be a nightmare. But in that same sense, I mean, I don't think that Louisiana's seen a run game that operates quite like Jacksonville State's, and I think that'll work in their favor on Saturday.
So looking at this matchup even a little bit further, where is your X factor? Who on Jacksonville State has to show up inside the Caesar Superdome and have a really big game if the Gamecocks want to win their first ever bowl game?
I could see a few guys. I mean, honestly, with this offense, it's kind of a coin flip. You can kind of pick your guy. One of those guys that's been so reliable is Malik Jackson. He, again, came to Jacksonville State to follow Rich Rod. This is his first season in Jacksonville State, and he's a guy that got all conference honors. He doesn't even have half of the carries, but he accounts for most of the rushing yards on the team. He's dealt with some injury, but Again, Anwar Lewis had to deal with injury. Ron Wiggins had to deal with injury that kept them sidelined. And Malik's just been really reliable for Jacksonville State. I think, again, he's a NFL type guy. I think that he has that talent and he can really break loose. But Jacksonville State's offensive line has also been really solid, and they're all going to be healthy for this game too. I know that Louisiana has some questions on the offensive line, but JSU's is set. And I really think that that alone will give Malik Jackson a pretty big day.
All right, so obviously you mentioned the run game being imperative for Jacksonville State. What else has to happen? Give me some keys to victory outside of the rushing attack for Jacksonville State.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to be most of what Rich Rod's trying to get after. But again, there's some receivers that can really cause some problems. One of those guys that's just like a really reliable yards after catch guy is Perry Carter. He's been Jacksonville State's leading receiver for a reason. I mean, I think a couple of times he's caught a pass that then it was like 5 yards away from the quarterback, and then he took it 60 yards to the house. But again, he's that guy that can break loose as well. He can get past the secondary pretty easily if he wants to. Against South Carolina, he had a really long receiving touchdown. There's another guy, Quentin Lane. He's been really solid for Jacksonville State as well, coming in from Stetson. There's a few guys as well on the receiving end, and Sean Brown as well, and another guy that is not only really valuable in the passing game, but I mean, he's provided really good run defense for Jacksonville State, going back to the run game, obviously, but this is a guy that's just been really good. And I think that on the other side of the field, I think that the run defense has been particularly good. And I think that that will really help Jacksonville State, especially knowing that they have guys that aren't really out as far as injuries besides, J-Rock Swain and Jabari Mack. I think that Jacksonville State's run defense is going to be, really key in this game too.
All right. Every college football analyst's worst nightmare. Give me a score prediction, Mr. Ashworth.
So if you'll notice, Jacksonville State's played pretty much every single game close. They had opened the season with a 3-point win against UTEP. They've played Sam Houston close. They played South Carolina close. They played New Mexico State close. They torched Middle Tennessee after running 44 points off to end the game on them. I think this will be a close game too. I mean, granted, a lot of people are looking at other conferences, but the Sun Belt's still a good conference. I mean, they had 12 of 14 teams make it to a bowl game. Louisiana's seen some really good competition, but again, I still think that Jacksonville State's run game is just nothing like Louisiana's seen before. And I would take Jacksonville State by a touchdown.
Thomas Ashworth of the Anniston Star joining us here on the Miguez Mindset, previewing the New Orleans Bowl between Louisiana and Jacksonville State this coming Saturday at 1:15 inside the Caesars Superdome. Thomas, really appreciate your time, man. Enjoy the experience this weekend, and we'll talk down the line.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well at ESPN Southwest Louisiana and on social media at ESPN_SWLA. We'll be back later this week previewing even further the weekend from the Louisiana side of things here on the Miguez Mindset on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Lake Charles.